Welcome to the Wander Women's Collective podcast. I'm your host, Gracie Hins, and as always, I am so psyched that you are here and listening in today. In quick Wander news, we are going to be hosting our first Wander event this Friday, May 23rd, over at Leavenworth Trailfest. We're going to be hosting a women's social run before all of the Leavenworth Mountain Fest activities start to kick off on Saturday. And yeah, I'm really excited to be bringing this to Leavenworth Trail Fest. I am just such a firm believer in, like, if you can start off your weekend making a new friend, like, it's going to be an epic weekend. So yeah, if you are a Washington local, or if you're just like, wow, I really want to come over to Leavenworth, Washington, which you should because it's absolutely stunning this time of year, then meet us at Ski Hill at 5:30 p.m. on Friday afternoon/evening. And then we will be taking off and just doing a super easy no drop run from Ski Hill. It'll be like a 3-mile loop. All of the information is available on our website. And yeah, I'm super excited to see everybody there. And today's episode is with Shea Aquilano. I recently saw her win the 100K at Gorge Waterfalls, and I saw her win and I was like, oh my gosh, she seems rad. I should chat with her. So today we have Shea Aquilano on the podcast. And without further ado, I'm super psyched to bring you that conversation now. So once again, thanks for listening in. Make sure to leave us a review wherever it is that you're listening. And I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. First of all, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Also, how are you for time today?
I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Wonderful. Yeah, I love to just like kickstart everything off with asking the question of like, who are you and what do you spend your time doing?
I'm Shea Aquilano. I grew up in Indiana, moved out to Boulder end of July last year, and pursuing trail running and all the things. Run mostly ultra distance events, and yeah, just love the running community and super happy to be where I am.
Yeah. I feel like I listened to like a couple of other podcasts with you just to kind of like get like a general gist of like who you are. But I'm like, oh my gosh, like Indiana to Boulder. And I feel like you're just also really cool and unique because I feel like there's not a lot of like younger people in like the ultra distance trail running. Like I know that there is,
Yeah,
but I also feel like a lot of
not a
like
lot.
yeah, like I feel like a lot of the bigger names that you hear are a little bit older and like have come from, like, oh, I started doing shorter distance stuff or maybe did track and then kind of fell into it and are having like a lot of success now, like way down the line. And I feel like with you, like I hadn't heard your name and then you were at Gorge and I was like, oh my gosh, she seems so cool. And it's just like a total crusher.
Aw.
But yeah, like, do you want to just give listeners like a little bit of a rundown on like how you kind of like ended up doing ultra distances from Indiana?
Yeah, so there wasn't like one thing that kind of led me to ultra. I used to play soccer in high school and all through growing up. Obviously a lot of running and soccer, but never did cross country or track. Yeah, so after like soccer season ended, my last year in high school, I was just kind of like looking to stay active as I was headed to college. Started running just for fun, to get outside a little bit, but we have a park that was 20 minutes from where I lived in Indiana and would go run some of the trails there. Obviously, the trails weren't crazy because it was Indiana, but yeah, I kind of fell in love with it,
Yeah.
and things things progressed pretty quickly from there. Yeah.
Yeah. What was like, I mean, like, how did the progression like come about? Was it more of just like, oh my gosh, I'm having so much fun running outside? Like, can I spend the whole day running outside and kind of just like from that, or was it kind of like the competitive side of it too? Because I feel like, especially coming from soccer, like soccer is really competitive, and so I could see that kind of like correlation a bit.
Yeah, I mean, soccer is competitive, but it's also a team sport. And I think that's one of the reasons why ultra is kind of fun is because you have a crew usually, or
Yeah.
the community feel is different. Everyone feels like they're supporting and working together to push everyone to do their best on the day. And I think that's really cool versus road running may not necessarily be the same way. At least
Hmm.
I didn't feel like it was. So, yeah, I think trails are pretty cool in that way. So. definitely drew me in.
Well, and you're just running in like the most beautiful places ever.
Exactly. Yeah. And it like created a way for me to travel and to
Hmm.
get to run in super cool places outside of Indiana. So got
Yeah.
to explore a lot of areas because of that and really grateful for it.
Yeah, because where were some of like the first bigger trail races that you kind of started to do that were like taking you places?
So maybe the first one that I did on the West Coast or kind of more Western was Black Canyon 100K. So
Okay.
running through the desert there. I had some family in Phoenix and Tucson area, so that was kind of an easy lift to do a double combo of visiting family while also getting to go explore some cool trails. But yeah, for the most part, like the first few years when I first started ultra running, it was majority in the U in the Midwest. So
Okay.
Michigan, Wisconsin, Indiana, Kentucky, those
Yeah.
areas.
Okay, what are like the best spots to run in those states? Like, as somebody who has not really spent any time in that area, I actually might be in Michigan for some work
Okay.
upcoming, but I don't actually know exactly where in Michigan it is. But yeah, I would love to like hear like the spots to go.
So I mean in Michigan there's like Pickney trails, so there's a race called Woodstock.
Hmm.
And it has a few different distances like a 50K, a 50 mile, and a 100 mile, and those trails are pretty beautiful. And
Yeah.
then like Wisconsin area did a lot on Ice Age Trail in Lagrange. So Ice Age Trail 50 miler, those are beautiful as well. Pine covered, single track in
Oh,
the
that does sound
forest, the
lovely.
trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just not a lot of like vertical there.
No, no, pretty flat for the most part. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and then were you anywhere in between Indiana and Boulder? Or like was
Um,
there anywhere else that you're
so
moving in between the two? Or like before you just moved to Boulder?
so right out of college, I moved to Seattle.
Okay.
That was for about 7 months because I had an internship with Brooks on their run research team.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
does that entail? Is that like running with Brooks or is that like okay.
No, I was just working on their research team, so product development, product
Okay.
testing, all that kind of thing.
Yeah. How does Seattle treat you?
It was great. The Pacific Northwest is absolutely gorgeous. I would say definitely maybe not the most city gal that one could be,
Yeah.
but appreciated the close proximity to all the natural spots.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel like Seattle is fantastic, but it's funny because like my parents are outside of Seattle and I've like been in between Salt Lake and Seattle and I'm like
Mhm.
finally looking for like a proper house, I think like outside of the Seattle area, but like the last like couple of months I've been like toying around with like, okay, do I want to be in like Seattle proper? Do I want to be like out? My parents are like Fall City, if you know where that is, like North Bend area.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
and I feel like I'm like kind of I'm at that spot where I'm like, when I come home, like I really want it to be quiet. And
Mhm.
like as wonderful as it is being able to like walk around the city, I do feel like there's something about just like having it be mellow and calm. And like Seattle as a city is a little bit like rustle and bustle feel to it.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a city for sure.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. So how is like the Boulder move been and like what is the current running community like out there? Because I imagine just going from like being somewhere where you're not like fully surrounded by that to then jumping into like Boulder, which kind of seems like a little bit intimidating actually. Like is a big switch.
Honestly, yeah, it's been a huge switch, but in the best way possible.
Yeah.
Such like a magical transition. Absolutely love being out here. The trail and running community, or just like the outdoor community in general, is super strong. Like literally everyone does some outdoor sport,
Yeah.
one way or another. And it's really inspiring to get to see how other people live and adventure and train. And it's been really cool to be have people to run with for sure.
Yeah, because are you on a team out there right now or like a club? I feel like I always
Yeah.
get slightly confused on how all of that works.
Yeah, so I am part of the trail team. So
Okay.
that's like there's a few different components. There's a trail team boulder, which is like people in the community who just want to get together to run. There's the trail team club, which is like the some of the best unsponsored aspiring trail runners. And then there's the
Yeah.
trail team elite, which is now eight
Okay.
runners around my age. Mhm.
That's super cool. Yeah. And like, are you guys doing similar races and like have similar goals, or is it kind of like a bit of a spectrum of like some people are doing more shorter distance stuff, some people are training for longer distance?
Yeah, so it's definitely a mix. We have people running road miles to people doing ultras like me. So
Yeah.
it's really cool to be able to like run with people doing something different than you, and everyone's working with their strengths and weaknesses and pushing each other to be better.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that's definitely a good like yeah. Well, and like how is that? I mean, like what do your like weeks and days kind of like look like at the moment? Because you're still working full time and then you're throwing
Mhm.
in all of this training and like I feel like that's a lot.
Yeah, so I until recently I had four jobs. Now I just have three.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. Yeah.
but it's like it's nice-ish because I can kind of be more flexible with my schedule and pick what hours I want to work.
Okay.
It's still a lot. Yeah, but for the most part, making it work. Love running, so it that doesn't feel like work at all. That's more just play.
Yeah. What are the three jobs?
So I work at Neurona, which is a retail store on Pearl Street selling
Okay.
outdoor clothing. And then until recently, I was working as a stage technician backstage at Mackey Theater at CU's campus and work as a science writer for a neuroscientist in the Boulder area. And then also recently joined the Scratch team as a field marketer.
Okay. Oh my gosh. It's like it's like three or four like fully different hats to be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, wait. How did you get into the like the science, right? I feel like each of those is like kind of fun and unique, but like the science writing, like that one seems like a little bit on the random side.
Yeah, I mean, my undergrad was in neuroscience and behavior,
Okay.
so that's kind of how I found my way
Yeah.
into that position. Yeah, mostly just helping write up research presentations and stuff like that and make it more approachable to the general public.
Okay. Are any of those three things like career paths that you want to like further explore, or is like most of the focus on running right now?
I'd say I kind of I like the scratch position because it is more geared towards like product research and development, which I think would be the area I'd be interested in going into.
Yeah.
Um, Using my neuroscience degree, maybe in conjunction with that for consumer insights and product perception and feedback. But yeah, right now, really into the running lane as well. So a lot of different hats, but they all kind of work together and we're making it work.
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel like there's all like they all do feed into each other and like that's kind of the key trick with like this whole like trying to figure out all of the things that get you excited and then like getting to piece them together. It's fun.
Exactly. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of feel like that with my life where like I have like my work that I do, which is all like in the marine world and it's like the science world. And then I have like this whole side passion currently of like the podcast and like all these different interests and things that I'm trying to pursue. And it's just like funny because I do feel like when you jump from like one thing to another, it's almost like the Hannah Montana world of like, oh, like this world of people sees me in this way.
That's
And
a
then
good
like I go
analogy.
and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm like, and it's yeah, so it's always like really funny to like talk with people about it. And like I was just at this like race in Spain and like was chatting with people and they're like, oh, like what do you do? And I'm like, well, I
A
work
lot of things.
a lot of different things. And like you can usually find me just like playing with mud, like outside of Seattle. Like, yeah, it's always funny just being able to like, yeah, like do all
Mhm.
the different things.
Never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment at all. Okay, so what has, I mean, like what, okay, because your schedule this year for racing, like the next big thing is Western States, right?
Yes.
How
Yeah.
are you
Super
feeling?
excited. I am so thrilled to be racing. Yeah, that honestly has been a dream of mine for a long, long time, like since I literally started running.
Hmm.
So to actually get to do it this year is absolutely amazing.
Yeah. I mean, what are like, yeah, no. I mean, Western States is huge and like it's just so different from like any other distance that you've run to. Like, how does the prep and like even just like the mental preparing for it like differ from like some of the other things that you've done?
Yeah, so I mean, I've done 100 miler before,
Okay, okay.
but it was in Indiana, so it was much flatter. Um,
Gotcha.
so I would say just upping more of my endurance blocks, so longer runs, back to backs, overall volume creeping up, and just practicing the fueling and nutrition, especially we'll be starting to do runs in maybe the hotter part of the day to mimic Western States, which is usually a pretty hot race.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
so just making sure I keep eating and drinking and hopefully keeping the carbs and fluid going in.
Yeah, because you feel like with like fueling, has that been something that you felt like you've had pretty dialed, or is it something that you're like, no, this is still like a piece of the puzzle that has to get?
Honestly, I feel like I've only just started to really sort of figure out more of the pieces this year, because I did start working with a sports dietitian, and it has been, yeah, game changing. Figuring out my sweat rate, what I'm able to tolerate in terms of carb intake, and then what I need to be doing in terms of salt and fluid. So
Gotcha.
finally figuring out some of those pieces, and it's made a big difference.
Yeah. Do you feel like this is just kind of like a random question, but like before that, were you kind of doing it more intuitively of like, okay, I feel like this is how much my body needs, and then like after getting some of this data, do you feel like the intuitive abilities were like kind of on point, or do you feel like you're like, no, like that was totally off of like what I'm being told that like will actually probably be better for my body?
Yeah, so I definitely think I was more on the intuitive side before figuring out like my exact numbers for certain things, but at the same time, still didn't really know what I was doing. Like I think, yeah, like one race I ate stir fry in the middle of like fried rice. I'm like, what was I doing? Um, yeah, so I think I've always known I'm a super salty sweater, and I
Okay.
would always finish runs with salt stains on my clothes, but I didn't know how salty I was until very recently. So getting that more dialed in and just increasing my salt intake, I think has been pretty cool.
Gotcha. Yeah, I feel like that's not one that most probably people are thinking as much about. I feel like the salt, I mean, I'm like, I feel like with nutrition, there's like new information out every day.
Oh,
But
totally.
yeah, which is so fun. And like, actually, my background is in nutrition. And so I feel like it's really cool just being able to like learn something new every day and
Oh,
like
sweet.
how everybody is just so different too. I
Yeah,
feel like.
everyone's individual. So it kind of like when people say, "Oh, everyone should be doing 100 plus grams of carbs per hour." I'm like,
Like, I don't
maybe
know about
not.
that one.
Maybe not.
Yeah, maybe if you're like a dude and you're like super, I don't know, I'm just like, yeah, the whole like blanket statements don't really make a lot of
Yeah,
sense.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, I'm also curious, like when you kind of started racing and like you did start to decide to do the longer distances, did you play around with the shorter distance idea or like what was it about the longer distances that you felt like suited you really well?
So I did, since I grew up in Indiana, a lot of my training was on roads. So I did do a handful of road marathons and a couple half marathons, which are fun. Yeah, don't get me wrong, but I don't know. I
Mhm.
always found more joy in the longer trail ultras because, yeah, it's more of an adventure. You're out there all day, you get to eat snacks, run with fun people, and see some really cool things and go places maybe you wouldn't be able to get to via car or get to see otherwise.
Yeah. Have you done my gosh, I totally just like was losing my train of thought here. Like kind of on the adventure side of thing. on the adventure side of things, has there been some like more adventure projects that you've like kind of had, or even just like in training? And like, I guess you've now been in Boulder for like almost a year, but like, how does like the kind of like flat piece of it versus like now being in Boulder and like having more trails and accessibility to just like wild spaces kind of like play
Yeah.
into it and like play into the psyche of it too?
Oh, it's so cool. Like you could run somewhere new every day here and never run the same thing twice for a long time. And yeah, like I tell this, or my roommate tells this story to a lot of people, but I was on a run with her and some friends, and we were just literally going on a sidewalk, but it had a great view of the Flatirons, and I'm like, this is the best run ever. And that was pretty recently after moving from Indiana. So
Yeah.
obviously there's way prettier trails and stuff, but yeah, my baseline for what I thought was super cool for a trail run was just on the floor. So I'm still super grateful to be out here and yeah, just the stoke keeps on increasing and being able to run in such a beautiful full place.
Yeah, no, I feel like it's pretty wild, and like just being in Seattle too, I think it's funny like the Snoqualmie Pass area. Like I've grown up there like my whole life, right? And it's like, you grow up hiking the trails with your family and then you get into running and like I just feel like every time I'm like spending like a proper amount of time at home, I like go on my favorite trail and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, like there's somewhere new I could go." And then it's just like you just fall in love even more with like the little nuances and like, "Oh, that's a new cool rock," and just like having so many different things. Like the more you love it, the more you can find about it, like wherever it is that you are.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Um, when was the first, because you did the World, oh my gosh, that's not what it's called. No, it is Worlds. It is Worlds.
Growth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did Worlds in Innsbruck like a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, in 2023.
Okay. And then are you going for Worlds again this year?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
And it's in the Pyrenees this year, right?
Yes, in Spain.
Yes.
Come from
Yeah.
Spain.
How was like the first experience at Worlds and then like coming off of it, and like how did that experience kind of like shape some of like your trail running career trajectory?
Oh my gosh, it was the coolest thing ever. Yeah, I'm still it was yeah, my first time racing internationally, getting to represent Team USA, running with all these people who I had absolutely looked up to in the sport and still do was such a cool opportunity. And the mountains out there are awe-inspiring, like just
Insane.
insane.
Yeah.
Like the scale of everything is massive compared to anything you could find here.
Hmm.
So that definitely rocked my boat a little bit. Coming from Indiana, I'm like, whoa. But has definitely opened up a lot of doors for me. And I think probably led me to Boulder because that's where I met Andy Wacker, who's the founder of the trail team.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that's kind of wild, like retrospect. Like
Yeah.
when did you just meet him like in passing when you were at Worlds, or was it?
Yeah, he was part of the media team at
Okay.
Worlds, so got to know him through that.
And then he was like, "Hey, you should move out to Boulder. It's super cool."
Basically, basically that's how it happened.
Yeah. Well, and like, yeah, and I feel like just being able to compete on that world stage just sounds so cool. And especially just being able to compete against, like you were saying, like people that you're looking up to and like putting yourself in that competitive field as well.
For sure. Yep.
Did you
Mhm.
have a race, or was it that race that like you kind of felt like, okay, I'm like fully gonna do this trail running thing?
Not sure if it was any specific race. Like, I think I just kept showing up, even if I got a beat down or something at one race. Yeah, just continuing to show up because I loved it. I don't think there was any specific point in time where I'm like, yes, this is what I want to do. It was just a continuous growth of joy for the community and for the sport as I went along.
Hmm. Well, and how, like, where now being in Boulder is a lot of your community in Boulder, or did you have a really strong trail running community in Indiana as well?
So I would say Indiana has a very, very small trail population. and not a lot of trail access, at least where I was based. So I would say I had community, but it was mostly on the road side because I used to have a road marathon coach.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely moving out here, it expanded my trail running community a lot more. But we'll always hold on to my Indiana roots, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like that is how it goes. And then after, okay, wait, so after Western States, you're doing going for Long Trail Worlds in the Pyrenees. Is there anything kind of like in between the two?
So I kind of just decided I was signed up for CCC
Oh, okay.
before I raced Gorge, and then once I raced Gorge and made the world's team, I'm like, maybe not, maybe don't want to do 100K in between
Okay.
Western States and Worlds, but have decided to just drop down in distance to the 50K because that'll also act as a great training run and get me out there to run on some similar-esque terrain to World.
Okay. Okay, so you're doing the 50K at UTMB.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah. That sounds rad. How are
I
you
know
feeling about
I've
that
never
one?
been out there, so
Yeah.
super excited, kind of in awe that I get to live this life, but no, I'm never taking it for granted.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like for you right now, because are you sponsored by anyone at the moment?
Um, this is upcoming news.
No, okay, okay, upcoming news. Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, as somebody who hasn't been sponsored yet, like,
Mhm.
how has kind of like the stress, or not even stress around that, but like the attitude around that kind of looked and like moving forward.
Yeah, so like having not been sponsored for every year previously of my running career, like I've just been doing it because I absolutely love it. And yeah, there's definitely sacrifices you have to make because you can't just go race in Europe whenever you want or travel
Mhm.
excessively for races because the budget just ain't quite there yet. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, just making those sacrifices to do what I love they haven't really felt like sacrifices just because it's really cool to do what we do, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. So, yeah, I'd say I'm a very value and joy driven runner. So, as long as everything checks those boxes, we're good to go.
Hmm. I mean, that's the best spot to be. I feel like when you
Yeah.
start to step away from that, it obviously is not super fun. Well, and like, how do you feel like, what are kind of the other things that are in your life too that kind of like help balance out running? Because I mean, you obviously have like three jobs at the moment with your other life things. But like,
Yeah.
what are the other elements of your life that kind of balance it out and like kind of, keep it so that you can stay super excited about running.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think having those jobs and other places of my life where I can just go and it's not running related is honestly great. And
Hmm.
also friends and family. Yep,
Hmm.
like every time I come home in the evening from work, my roommates are like, all right, let's play New York Times Connections, and we have a roommate battle. So it's little things like that that'll keep me sane and just remind me that what I get to do is pretty cool.
Yeah. That's no, and like the roommates too. Because did you have the roommates lined up? Or I guess you probably did have the roommates lined up before you moved out to Boulder. But were they people that you already knew, or was it like random?
I knew them through the trail team. So I live with
Okay.
Amy Wacker and Carly Rumpel and
Okay.
Nika.
Super, super fun. Um, so for UTMB stuff, I mean, that's crazy. Like 50K in France. I'm also so excited. It was really funny. My dad and I are actually doing a climbing trip out to Chamonix during UTMB, and I like didn't realize that we had like booked it for then. And then I was like looking at the calendar because I was like, oh man, like, like what's going on? Like, what should I be paying attention to? And then I like realized that we're gonna be there like during UTMB, and I'm like so beyond psyched to like be there
Yes.
and like watch and because I just feel like I mean like in the US like we have pretty fun trail culture obviously, but like
it'll be so cool to see the European trail culture because I just feel like people take it, so much, not more seriously, but like it just seems like such a party all the time
Yeah,
and like so many
exactly.
people psyched on trail running. So,
I've heard the whole week is absolutely chaotic, but in the best way possible. So
yes,
I'm
yes.
excited to see how that
No,
translates from the
I
US
know.
scene.
Yeah, no, I think yeah, it'll be wild, but like so cool to see. And just like when you have so many people that are like so inspirational that are there that you can just like see cross the finish line. That's cool.
Yeah, I'm stoked. Well, that's so cool that what a coincidence
I
that you
know.
got
Well,
there.
and like who do you feel like are some people that you have like looked up to and are like, "Oh my gosh, now I'm like running with these people."
Well, let's see here. Courtney Dauwalter, she was kind of like the first person that I followed when I started trail running. Just her vibe, like she does it because she loves it, and
Yeah.
you can see that in everything she does. And that's kind of how I wanted to approach the sport as well. In a lot of ways, grateful that I didn't run cross country or track in high school or college because
Mm,
I hear a lot of stories about people getting burnt out from that. And I think just approaching it in my own way has been super beneficial to keep holding on to that joy, so to speak.
yeah.
But outside of Courtney Dauwalter, like on the world's team, so many amazing lady crushers like Katie Scheid, and just mind blown that I get to be a part of that.
hmm Well, and with the world's team, it's built from like these races that you qualify from. And then there's like a couple of like you can do the application submission, right?
Yeah, so there's two spots that are granted for the world's team from Gorge, at least
Mhm.
for the long trail, which is 80K. So Claire Rhodes and I got those spots from Gorge Waterfalls 100K, and then the other four spots come from Resume.
Oh, wait, so there's only 6 spots on the world's team?
Yeah, six spots for women, six spots for,
Whoa.
but then there's also the classic up down, the VK, short trail, and the U20 race. So there's other distances involved in worlds,
hmm
and each will have their own qualifying race or selection process.
Right. Also, this is like a slightly dumb question, but like what I mean, like you have the world's race, but
Mm.
then you have all these other races throughout the year, and like you have obviously your different trail series and things like that, but like what stands out to worlds for you, at least that you're like, okay, I really want to be competing in this field of people.
I think one of the unique things about worlds is you race as a team. So you
Okay.
race as a team, and there's not many other opportunities in trail running where you can be a part of something like that, where you get to run in a cohesive nature with other individuals and all kind of work together.
Okay.
In the trail scene, as part of its nature, like everyone is super supportive, but as in terms of the team structure, I think Worlds is pretty cool. And then also getting to represent your country.
Well, and is it only like the one race at the end of the year, or are there other races that are put on as well?
So the World Mountain and Trail Running Championships happens every 2 years.
hmm
And so this one happens in September. The last one happened in 2 years ago in 2023. But then there's also different races like the USATF 50K, and that might be on roads. So there's different championships depending on what discipline of running you're in. But in terms of trail running, like this is the big one.
Okay, got it. I did not know that about it. I thought it was every year.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
that's where like it's funny because I feel like with like every sport, it's like you can be paying attention to it and like have like a general idea of it, and then you still just like learn something new, and you're like, oh right, I had no idea.
I'm still figuring out how everything works, to be honest. Like
Yeah,
there's so many things out there that you could be doing.
yeah. Well, and then there's like a new race every year that I'm like, well, I didn't
Yep.
know that that
Mhm.
race existed. That seems like it would be cool to go to and watch.
Totally.
Yeah. Do you have any other like exciting summer plans or travel plans around those races, or is it? like, well, I mean, Western States is coming up end of June. And then is there any kind of like chill vacation-y things happening before the 50K in Worlds?
I mean, I see a lot of these races as vacation. Just because it's such a
Yeah.
such a cool experience.
See, this is the
But yeah,
perfect attitude. Yeah,
it's a party. I mean, you get to hang out with friends, you get to go see new
so
cool
true.
places.
Yeah.
That's a vacation if I ever heard of one.
Mhm.
But yeah, we'll be taking recovery time after that as well. So just be relaxing, probably back in Boulder for a little bit before ramping training back up for OCC and Worlds.
Yeah. Well, and like for you with the travel, do you feel like it kind of like takes a lot out of you or just like depends on the trip and the run and the travel?
Yeah, so I mean, I'd say for domestic traveling, usually I'm totally fine. International travel, I don't have a ton of experience with outside of like Worlds, but even that went fine. Probably required a little bit more recovery time after flying home from that race, just due to the long travel days. But yeah, nothing crazy, which is good, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Not like, yeah, not the end of the world where it just like shakes up your schedule too much.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. How are you feeling from the jet lag?
It's not been terrible. I feel like I I ended up spending 2 days in New York. It was kind of like an experiment of like, okay, if you are coming from Spain and then you stop to adjust for 2 days on the East Coast, like, does that make it a little bit better? And I do feel like it's actually made it ever so slightly better. But I was like wanting to fall asleep at 7 p.m. Like the last, like when I was in New York, I was visiting friends and I was like, they were like, we're gonna do like a fun dinner. And I was like, I'm gonna go to bed.
Good time. I respect that.
Yes, I was like, I think I might go to bed. It's been a long week. Yeah, but not too terrible. But I always do feel like it's a little bit of like a fun experiment and like I think for me too with travel and like work, it's always just like every time is a little bit different, but you kind
Mhm.
of like keep those things in the back of your mind of like, okay, like especially like if you can kind of keep your routine the same of like, okay, I do the same bedtime routine
Yeah,
every night.
100.
Like that makes it so much easier to just be able to like adjust and like not have your body too thrown out of whack.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm definitely on the sleep side, so I love going to bed early. So do all my
Mhm.
roommates, which is nice. We all have the same sleep schedule for the most part.
Oh, that's good. I know. I feel like that's when it does get tough too, especially like my like least favorite thing is getting woken up when it's like midnight to like a door slamming and you're like, man, I just
Yeah,
fell asleep.
so close.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I feel like that's kind of like a lot of the different questions that I had for you. I'm trying to think, like, what is like a phrase that you feel like you keep in the back of your mind that like keeps you going, whether that's like in a really long run or that's like in a day that you're just like, man, today was not like the greatest day, but it was a day.
For those kind of situations, I like to think that it never always gets worse.
This is true.
Yep, yep. So
Yeah.
can't keep going down. It's got to go up at some point.
This is true. Yeah.
Mhm. But outside of that, if you were asking about like mantras, one of them is to stay in the arena, like to stay in the fight, stay present, stay focused, and yeah, not get complacent towards the end
hmm
of a race.
That's a good mantra. That's a good serious mantra. Do you have any like favorite snacks while you're running too? That's
I
not just like a gel.
yeah, I mean, I also like stroop waffles. Stroop
Okay,
waffles
okay.
are great. The sour Scandinavian swimmers are fire from
Oh,
Trader Joe's.
oh, that's
Yeah,
a good tip. Hit Trader Joe's before you go on a long run.
would recommend.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I usually just do like I'll just stop at like a gas station and like find something that looks kind of fun. But
I mean,
Trader
that
Joe's
works
is
too.
like way more quality and good, kind of.
Heck yeah.
Do you have any other things to leave people on today?
I don't think so. Just that I'm super excited for the rest of the year and
I know.
yeah.
I'm excited to follow and I'm excited for everybody else to follow too. I feel like podcasting is so fun because I feel like I get really excited about like people that are doing cool things and then just like being able to have a conversation and learn a little bit more about you and like put the spotlight on somebody is always just like a cool thing to do.
Oh, yeah, well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Well, I hope you have a lovely rest of your Friday. Oh my gosh, it's Friday. I
I
keep
know it's
forgetting.
Friday.
Well, I hope you have a lovely weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You as well.
Thank you. Well, I hope to bump into you sometime in the future and actually meet you in person. Maybe UTMB. Who knows?
100%. That would be awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, have a good weekend, and it was so fun chatting.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks again for listening in today, and remember to check out our Instagram or website if you are interested in Leavenworth Trailfest. If you also still haven't signed up for it and you're like, wow, I really want to run a 27K or 55K or a town 5K, then we have a 20% discount if you use the code WANDER at checkout. And yeah, excited to see you over there, and thanks again for tuning in today.